Please.
Funny how that works.
We get this, can you be my paper on this? We get this.
Oh, pass this out again.
Nice, when I give you two, and then I have.
Okay, we're gonna get started.
I only have about 11 copies.
All right, don't mind. Give me the cue.
Thank you.
I want to call to order the Taxpayers Association of Belknap County. This is August the 19th. This is the public meeting portion. Zoom is available. Stu, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President's announcements and comments. We get a lot of junk mail. I don't know if you guys recognize that, but I cleaned out the mailbox and found a bunch of things here. People can come look at all the junk if you want. It's available. Also, I had commented on, I got the certified mail return receipt from Melody on the response to her affidavit, declaration of truth document, which is right here. Also, Bob Severin had commented that he had heard from Mark Pappas. As you know, Mark's wife has been very, very ill for quite a while, probably over a year. And Bob told me that she had passed away very quickly, I assume. And so my heart goes out to the family, and I just wanted to mention that if you knew Mark, that's one of the things he's had to deal with over the past year. Comments, we have our speaker today, and in terms of, just a second here. Gotta get my, in terms of our speaker, we, Frank and I have been talking now for pretty much 6 months, I think, fairly regularly about the housing situation in El Dorado County. Frank has been part of this for how many years? The housing El Dorado?
It's my third year with Housing El Dorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were just chatting before the meeting about the fact that it's difficult to that becoming easy. It's difficult at becoming easier to be able to tell the story about why housing is so important to El Dorado County, and why housing El Dorado, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, why they take on a particular role. I'm going to introduce your board member.
Yeah, and I'm pleased to introduce Charlie McDonald is on our board of directors, so thank you.
And he'll help pass out a few papers in a moment here.
Yeah.
A little bit of background, since Kevin Calhoun, he didn't give me all the bio. It was in the newsletter.
Okay.
We talked about
Sure.
you and your background, but what's some of the high points in your background? What takes you to this point?
Sure. So I'm a retired school superintendent. I've lived in the county for almost 45 years. I've worked in, I had several careers, but my main career was in education as a teacher, school principal, and then a school superintendent. I was school superintendent at 3 different school districts in my career, Amador County and Sacramento, 2 different districts, Rio and Twin Rivers. So that was my background, and in my experience as a superintendent, particularly when I worked down in Sacramento, the districts I worked in were high AFDC, meaning they had high counts of free and reduced lunch counts, and kids who are struggling, and parents and struggling to survive and thrive. And so we had a lot of homeless students in the school districts that I worked in. So I learned very very upfront close about the impacts of homelessness on families and children and school education and success in school. And we've done lots of things in our state and our counties to try to address that. There are ongoing efforts, but that was actually motivated. Hired, I got involved in affordable housing and dealing with homeless issues, primarily because of my deep concern about the fact that we have nearly 750 homeless students in our county. I mean, a lot of people don't know that, but it is a fact. And so it's a huge impact on their success. And so that's a big part of my motivation.
And then we were gonna start off with just the bullet point about what happened at the Board of Supervisors,
Well, let me get to in my slide deck, when I talk about this housing element.
oh, okay, then
I'll pop
you'll pop that in, okay. So the floor's yours.
Okay, well, I appreciate the floor and the opportunity to be a guest speaker today. Pardon me for sitting down, but I've got a gimpy knee. I had some knee surgery, didn't go well, so I'm for the next 6 months. Hopefully it'll all get cleared up. But in the meantime, I need to keep weight off my knee. So thank you. So I'm glad to be here today. Today I'm going to spend most of the time talking about the second bullet, which is mobile home residents and our situation in our mobile homes, and a survey that we completed and analyzed, and with some results of that, and where we're headed. We're trying to address the mobile home part issue. The first part, I want to do a little overview of what Housing Dorado is doing. And we have two areas of emphasis. We do homeless services, and then we also are involved with affordable housing and promoting affordable housing. And then we'll go into the home part, and then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. Okay. So next slide. So our mission basically is to build sustainable communities and to help build self-sufficiency in the clients that we work with and the folks we work with. So the solutions we've come up with on the sphere and in the sphere of affordable housing, we want proven models of other parts of the country that have done well and are sustainable. Kevin, can we get the next one? I'll go ahead. We are part of a coalition. That's great. We work with all these organizations that you see listed out, but we actively work with them to get things done. This county has a wonderful, I think all of you know this, there are some phenomenal nonprofits and other civic groups working in the county who do wonderful work. And our work is meant to complement and fill in the gaps with their work and to help them achieve things they want to achieve. So we work with all of those organizations, including the city of Pottsville, the county, Federated, the El Dorado Community Foundation is our actually affiliated organization. We are an affiliate. They actually helped us get started and helped basically incubated us. And then we get funding with all the organizations, the hubs, the upper room is a big partner in multiple projects that we're over the years and will continue to be. So volunteers, you're probably familiar with, they run the shelter here in town. They are a great, phenomenal organization, and we continue to work with all of them. Next step. You can't get stuff done in this county unless you work with other people. In the service area, we have three main areas that we have services, and again, we try to fill gaps. One area, the Pathways Project on the left, is where we started, and back during COVID. When COVID first hit, the Housing El Dorado didn't exist actually. There was a nomadic ministry, some of you may be familiar with that, the interfaith collaboration, and nomadic ministries ran and operated winter shelters for 10 years in our county in cooperation with a set of churches. There are 7 churches in that group. And but when COVID hit, their volunteer base was not available because why? They were concerned about their health, and most of them are my vintage or older. And so, and you well know during COVID, that first part, we were very cautious about wanting to expose anybody to COVID. So the churches said, hey, we can't have this winter shelter. And so in August, they called us up and said, hey, can you come up with something we know we're gonna have a bad winter, we can't do what we've done before. And so in about 6 weeks, we put together a new organization, created a new program. We raised money, private donations. Charlie was very involved in that first launch, as were many others. And we successfully put together a winter lodging program with Green Valley Church. It was a central part of that. So Green Valley Church has been a huge partner for us, and they continue to be. So we've been providing winter shelter since then. The program has evolved and changed and gotten better, in my view, over time. And our funding for that has gotten a little more, slightly more stable. This is the first year, by the way, that we actually have funding identified in our program already designed and ready to push the go button, in November. We're not scrambling for the last, in August and September to put it together. We actually have already put it together and we've gotten the funding. So we are making progress in us responding effectively to homelessness. We also run a shower and outreach program with Green Valley Church that runs throughout the year. Transportation program, that's part of the Pathways project. We also launched a safe parking program in the county, again, with another church. Churches are a big part of our work and we greatly appreciate their ministries. And we have a overnight program for women and children who are homeless. And sadly, we still have that in our county. And the other fact is that the average age of our population, the most recent census for our safe parking program this is for women and children, is 64. Why? Because we have more and more elderly women who are becoming unhoused in our county, and I will get to that later on. And then we also run an emergency fund. This was a big missing piece when this county put together their 5-year plan to end prevent homelessness. They found a big gap in emergency funding for people who are teetering on the brink of losing their rental. But if you're living hand to mouth and paycheck to paycheck, and all of a sudden you have a medical problem or whatever, you can end up becoming homeless. And so we have an emergency fund and it's a well-run fund. We started out with private money, donations, and so on. And now we've moved into getting more funding. Our first budget for this, I think, was $8,000 when we launched it. And then it grew to 15, and now it's up to about $60,000. And we keep growing it because it's very effective. We keep people, the best way to end homelessness is to prevent it and keep people in their housing before they fall into homelessness. Because as you all know, once you fall out of housing, it's very hard to get back in, particularly if you don't have a lot of resources. So that's it. Next slide. Now, this is one, I put this one in there, and you can hand that out. I only have a few copies of these, but I think you actually can see it well where you are. I've heard a few. Charlie,
Like 9 of each, so
you spread them out, Charlie, and share the wealth. The other big, I would welcome the opportunity to come back as Chris said, this is a whole other presentation and then some, is to talk about why our county is in the predicament we are with the lack of affordable housing, the lack of housing for our workforce and also for our own children. If you are grandparents or parents, you may have children who can't buy housing or get into housing. Right now, 51% of the people who work in Elrod County don't live here. And they don't live here partly by choice, in some cases of choice. But a lot of it is they can't find housing. And they can't find the housing to live in, so they commute in and out. And many agencies, the school districts, the county workforce, so on, people commute in, they'd like to live here, but where's the housing? It just hasn't been built. And the reason for that, and this chart demonstrates it, is the county we have a wonderful track record. I've studied the housing elements for the last 20 years. We have a very wonderful track record of building high-end housing. And we're very good at that. So there's lots of high-end housing in the county, moderate and high-end, and we're very successful at that. Very poor at building very low and even moderate housing. And that is hitting us. And we have every 7 years, there's a housing element study, and you're required to come up with a plan about how you're going to meet these regional housing needs for our county. And for the last two cycles, the county has put together wonderful plans. They just never got executed. Evan will probably give you some sites, chapter and verse on this stuff as well. So we are in this predicament now, and the troubling thing for me was that they launched a brand new housing element, 2021 to 2029. So that's the one we're on now. The first 2 years of it, 21 and 22, that's what this graph shows. They built zero. They have a target of building 1,441 being very low income households, 868 for low income households. So they built during that time, and they had a goal of building 2,041. This is over 8 years, right? So the first 2 years of the project, they issued zero building permits in 21 and 22 for very low and low income housing. And so this is the same pattern we've seen over two housing elements, previous ones, and now we're launched a new one. And in my view, this is a crisis. You know, we are at a crisis point. You all probably have, like me, blessedly, I own my home house now. We paid off the mortgage. We're fortunate, but a lot of folks are living hand to mouth and very, very difficult time finding housing they can live in, even if they're in the workforce. You know, there are school districts that are having trouble recruiting teachers because there's no housing for the teachers to move into. And there's the same thing with the county departments and the Marshall Hospital. All of them have reported to me, and it's common knowledge, we talk to any business person, they are having a hard time growing their businesses because why? Where are the workers going to live? You know, it takes an enormous amount of money to get in and afford housing. I don't want to take a lot of, Charlie asked me to bring this up, or excuse me, Chris. He also wanted me to mention there is some good news. The good news is the county, and again, if I come back and I can give you a more detailed look at that, the county has been approving some affordable housing projects, and they are in the pipeline. Two of them are in construction now in Placerville. The one at Middlebury and the other one at Mallard, and there's another one going to go in Placerville. We'll probably start construction next year. So there is some progress, but it's slow. Now, the other good progress is the county just issued, they've hired a consultant that I think is doing a great job, and she gave a report, and Chris and I happened to be there at the August 13th Board of Supervisors meeting on the work that she's doing with the county planning department on the permitting process and the other things, because the county has a part of the problem is the planning approval process and the permitting process. We all know it's not what it could be. I just leave it at that. And so that's being worked on, and I think both Chris and I agree, we've seen really solid progress, tangible, and I'd love to come back and report on that at some other time. Next slide. So I'm going to go more quickly, otherwise I'm going to be getting a hook soon. Our affordable housing initiatives that we are involved in, we've launched a Jumpstart ADU program. I invite you to check out that website, www.eldoradoadu.org. It's kind of simple, eldoradoadu.org. I invite you to check it out. We have launched that about 8 months ago. We are now expanding the project. We're working with the planning department on building a plans gallery. And the purpose of that is to accelerate the building of accessory dwelling units, or sometimes called granny cottages, on properties, residential properties. And so it's a great resource, has all sorts of information and will help you kickstart your efforts. We also have people available to talk to you on the phone about it. I'm going to talk about mobile homes. We also, with the El Dorado Community Foundation, have established a community land trust of El Dorado County and the El Dorado Community Land Bank, and they are established to receive properties that can then be used for affordable housing development. And that as a way to bring down the cost of the housing, because the land is donated, and then you build projects, affordable housing projects on them. So we have a couple of things we're working on in that area. And then the other one that I'm really excited about is Bridge Meadows, and I invite you to check out their website at www.bridgemeadows.org. They are in Oregon. They've been there for about 13 years. They have 4 intergenerational communities they've built. They're all about 60 housing units in a really wonderfully well-designed, intentional intergenerational community, and it has seniors. And it's affordable housing for seniors. It's also housing for foster and kinship families. So these are foster families who need more support for their foster kids, because they now have a community of seniors who are become a surrogate grandpas and aunts and uncles and so on, to the children living there, and also a support system for the foster parents or kinship families. As you know, there are more and more grandparents, I don't know if anybody in this room is doing that, but grandparents and granduncles who sometimes are raising their grandchildren, right? So this is also a very supportive community for that kind of situation, because it is a big burden as a grandparent to take on raising a grandchild. It's also a place, they also take in what are called reunited families. So these are maybe a mom had a rough time and lost her children for a period of time, and she's now gotten her life back together, and she's ready to be reunited with her children. And so they also, that's another source of potential families. There's only about 7 or 8 foster families in each of these communities. It's overwhelmingly senior housing. And again, they want to maintain a ratio where there's lots of seniors, and it's about 2/3 seniors and about 1/3 foster parents and foster families for the population. They want to expand out of Oregon. They have been out looking at different counties. Basically, we've been, I call it, wooing them for about a year now. We've helped them find land that would be suitable. We've sponsored a tour here. They've come and visited us, and they like our county. They really want to come and work here. We've had a great welcoming from CASA, Casa El Dorado. Many of you probably know that, and the foster care services provider, Sierra Health and Child and Family Services, also is eager to have them come to our county, as are a couple of supervisors who also are very anxious. This is a golden thing for us to get in our county. So we are busy, and we'll probably be back for another visit this fall, looking at another property we found. But anyway, check that out. I really hope you will. And we're looking forward to that coming to our county eventually. We don't have it, it's one of those things you just keep chipping away at. Next slide. Okay. So actually it's been we've been working on mobile home situation since we started. We realized really early on, three years ago, that we have, and I'll talk to you about why we're doing this. Why don't you go to the next slide? So the background on this is that we Housing El Dorado identified mobile home parks as a really significant deal, and a significant component of our affordable housing. There are about 50 mobile home parks in our county, and they run the whole spectrum. I'll give them a report on that. So we also realize that they're getting less and less affordable. And in many cases, we have seniors who are living in a lot of the population like seniors. It's also families, but they're getting priced out. So we wanted, with the other community foundation, we formed a collaborative effort to get a better understanding of and to guide, what we might do about plans and so on. So we developed a survey instrument based on samples from the Golden State Mobile Homeowners Association and other organizations. And the survey that we did, this is back a year ago almost. We had extensive outreach for several weeks. We posted announcements at the hub centers. We had samples at the hub centers. We had the surveys available online. We actually went to some of the mobile home parks and canvassed the mobile home parks and invited participants to participate in the survey. So we had a good survey instrument, and we wanted to make sure we got a statistically significant sample. So we ended up getting 185 surveys completed, which if you study survey samples, that's actually a very good sample across a population to get a feedback on, what is the situation. So we then completed a really extensive analysis and validation of the survey data. And with the assistance, we actually had 2 retired data scientists who offered their services, and they went through and accumulated. I have a electronic file with about 5 different, spreadsheets in it of all the data that they pulled together and analyzed. And then that led us to, when we started looking at that, we said, well, you know, it's one thing to bring forward a report on, here's what we found. And then the question always is, well, what are you gonna do about it? Right? And so we spent another couple of months researching some options that we fleshed out about how to proceed, because we didn't want to bring forward a report without, well, here's what we think, you know, some actions we could take as Housing in Dorado and that we would recommend the county take. So we have arrived at that. That took us almost 8 or 9 months, part of which my health problems, to be honest with you. So that got delayed and other things came up, but. So let's go into the next survey. So the background, again, mobile homes are a critical part of our affordable housing. About 10% of our affordable housing stock in the county is mobile home parks. Now that might seem like a lot, but that is a lot. It's about 44,000 units roughly. And CJ Freeland, who used to be our planner, she had done a lot of data analysis of it, and she arrived at the number about 10% of our affordable housing stock, and I think it's an accurate number. So we partnered in 2023 to do the survey. Next slide. Now this shows you the distribution, and it's really interesting. We got a really good geographic distribution. This is, again, remember we had 185 surveys. So this is the distribution of those surveys. And you can see over the far right, that's South Lake Tahoe. And you can see that's about 25% of the surveys came from there, and so on. South County, 2%. In the middle there is Shingle Springs and Pollock Pines with 20%. Placerville with about 13, and then Lotus Coloma with about 24, and so on. El Dorado has one mobile home park, and we only got one response from that park. But you can see the distribution geographically is a good representation geographically of our county. So we were happy with that. We saw a good distribution across the county geographically at different parks. It wasn't all one mobile home park. Okay, next one. And then when we started looking and compiling the results, you know, we found that mobile home residents are often very low income, not all of them. And I'll show you another slide that kind of illustrates this in a minute. And that they are earning on average, at least are often, 71% of the survey are classified at least very low income, I mean less than 38,000 a year. So a good portion of our residents, why? Because this was if you were on a fixed income and a limited retirement 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you moved up here it was a beautiful option. You could move up here and have a fairly inexpensive space rent, and you could own your own mobile home and live in lovely El Dorado County. So for a lot of folks who planned their retirement out, this was part of their plan. And mobile residents are often older adults on fixed incomes. 70, and you're going to see this later, 74% said they are all residents of phone are over 55 years old. So we have again, older population. Residents own their mobile homes, but they don't own the land it lives on or it sits on. They rent the space. We have no what are called resident-owned communities where the residents own the land and collectively, and then they own the building as well. We'll talk about that a little later. And in addition, of course, they're paying the other usual things: utility bills, electric, gas, garbage bill, water, sewer, so on. And those, as you well know, have been going up even more. And in some cases, because of the way the mobile home parks are operated, the mobile home park owner also has the contract for the natural gas or the propane. And so they are basically selling the gas, the propane, as a secondary, and honestly, some of them make, in my view, an almost egregious markup on what they charge for the propane compared to what you can get it on the market. The next slide. So this graph shows really does a nice job of illustrating the distribution of incomes. And as you can see, the yellow bar in the middle, or I would call that, let's call that salmon, I guess. It's 20%, and that's extremely low income. That's 22,000 or less. And then the one next to it at 40.76% is very low.
So this one right here is the salmon.
That's the average, right there. So right in the middle there. So that yellow one is the average 37,000. And then the one to the right of it, the yellow is low income, that's 60,000. And then the green block is 79,000 or less. And moderate income is the green block, which is 95,000. And then the blue one is above moderate income, which is 95,000. So you can see the distribution. And again, this is our sample. This is from our survey sample. But I think it's a good representation because I visited lots of the parks, and some of the parks are moderate. Many of the parks are well maintained, and the park owners do a nice job of managing them. And there's a mix of, moderate income and low income folks. Some of them are very poorly run, in my view, and we won't get into that, but anyway, that's the distribution of income. Next slide. Now this was for us, one of the aha moments when we did our study and started looking at the data. And that is the distribution of the year that the people moved into their mobile home and the age of manufacture of their mobile homes. So I will call those beige, because they're now beige on here. Bars going off to the right are when people moved into their mobile home parks. So you can see down in the bottom there, Chris, maybe you can point out to 1993, 97, or in the middle there. Yeah, so you can see right then that there's a smaller bar of people who moved in, the beige bar, and then as we go up from 93, 97 to 98, 2002, and so on, it obviously goes up, the number of people who moved in that year. So the biggest bar is on the end, 2018. So within the last 5 or 6 years, about 31% of the folks have moved into their mobile home parks. So you can see they're more recently moving in, right? But what they're moving into is very old mobile homes parks, mobile homes. The age of manufacture of the homes, 40% of them are 1977 or earlier. And their lifespan for a mobile home is not that long. It's maybe 40 years at best. Sometimes people will say 30. 40 is really stretching it. And we have an enormous stock of housing that was built between 1983 or before, 1987 or before, that is aging out. And you know what happens to older, whether you have a stick-built house or a manufactured home, they deteriorate over time unless they're maintained. And the systems, the water heater and the heating, the windows, the doors, things start breaking down and need to be replaced. And we all know that if you own a home, a regular home. It's even manufactured homes do not have as long a lifespan. So the point is that we have more and more of our residents in the mobile home parks who are living in these aged out manufactured homes. And so that's leading to all sorts of situations, and our caseworkers are finding this, where they, senior living in a mobile home park, they are living hand to mouth, meaning barely paying. Their rent's going up for the space rent, and space rent right now in our county has gone from where it used to be $500 or $600 a month. It's now $800, $900, $1,100 a month on top of that's just the space rent. And on top of that, they've seen these dramatic increases in utility rights, which again, they live in under insulated homes, older homes that tend to leak. So they're very expensive to heat and cool throughout the year. So their utilities are going up, and then all of a sudden they have a water heater that goes out, or the ramp needs fixing, or the roof needs patching. And that's just the thing that pushes them into having to walk away from the housing. Next slide. And this is kind of summarizing what I said. And by the way, Charlie, why don't you hand out those other, by the way, I just took the notes here and put them on the document. So I'm gonna, Charlie, if you'd like one of those, I think I have 15 copies. You're welcome to take one.
Mine here.
Could I have one of these?
Okay.
Can I have one too, Charlie?
But all of the things that I put up here are in this document, so you're welcome to have one.
That is there. Pretty stable.
Okay. And again, we've covered all these things a little more. You can go on to the next one. These are findings. Next slide. And of the 185, 174 of them in the survey provided space rental rate for their information on mobile home parks from when they moved in compared to today. Now, more than 50% of them said that they had 5% or higher average annual rental rate increases year over year. Now, remember, if you think back over the last 13 or 14 years, if you're getting an average of 5% a year, and you know, typically in Social Security, you're lucky if you're getting 2 or 3. And many of them are living on disability and or Social Security or pensions, which have a limited increase. Over time, you know, your income is, you know, creeping up and your rent basis, you know, rent costs is going like this. And over 24 of them said they've seen 8% or higher average annual increases. And we are seeing that in some of the mobile home parks more recently, even that, you know, people, they're jacking them up 8, 10%, sometimes even more. And the average, we did that already. And then I talk about the average inflation rate, which is about 3%. And then the key is that rising space rent costs are frequently cited by mobile home residents as a large risk factor that could lead to them becoming homeless and losing their housing. And then where are they going to go? And because again, if you don't own the land and you own the building, and you want to move, where are you going to move to? The space, the availability of spaces anywhere else are limited and not any less expensive. And it's going to cost you a minimum of $6,000 to move your mobile home or more. And if it's an aged out building, like 1970, it's probably not worth it financially because the building will struggle to make the move. You know what happens trying to move an old building. And so you're in a predicament.
So the book's getting ready. It's not out there yet, but can you,
Am I getting the hook?
yeah, you're
Okay,
gonna, you're
okay. All right, I'm feeling it. Okay. We got a lot of written comments from the surveys and the folks that did the compiling it. They compiled them all into a file. This is a little sample of them. And it is really telling about the situation we're in with mobile home parks. Next slide. I think we can skip through this one. And then this is so we spent a lot of time in the last 4 months. Well, we looked at that chart I showed you about the age of the buildings, the mobile home parks, and how many of them are essentially very old and very much, in many cases, in need of a lot of repairs. So we investigated how could we come up, are there repair projects going on elsewhere in our region and elsewhere in the country? And what do those look like? So we went out and visited a number of programs, Rebuilding Together in Sacramento. They've had a number of projects to help with renovating and repairing mobile home parks. So we met with them, we got samples of their documents, and we put together a proposal. And we've gotten started funding. We are launching our own mobile home critical repair project with some funding and grants that we received from funders to launch this critical repair project. And that will start in September. But we wanted to come forward with some action we could take in our power, our bandwidth to do. So we're launching that. And then we also have the Board of Supervisors some recommendations already in the housing element. This is the problem with the housing element, is that the board will put in their policies that they've adopted. They have adopted these policies, yet they don't get implemented. They don't get acted on so that the commitment to actually follow through on it. So the board has a policy that the county shall support efforts to convert mobile home parks where residents lease their spaces to resident-owned parks, ownership of the park. They also have a policy that conversion of mobile home parks to housing that is not affordable to very lower level housing shall be discouraged. So they have policies, and so we are urging the board, let's work together to implement those. Let's make it happen, not just put it on paper and not act on it. So we're working towards that. The next page. One of the areas we want to do is we also think the county, there are federal and state grants, particularly the federal grant called the Price Grant, that we're pretty confident will get funded again next year. We don't know that yet. But we're saying the price grants are competitive, but they are a big infusion of money to basically you could renovate an entire park and convert it to a resident-owned park and do a basic or several parks. You could do multiple projects with this federal money. But the key to it is you have to get prepared ahead of time. You can't wait until the grant is issued or the application comes out. So we know what would be required for a price grant. We've seen the criteria the last go around. We analyzed a price grant and we just did not have the bandwidth. We don't have the capacity to do it by ourselves. But the county, we could do it, or others could do it with the county. And so what we're saying to the board, let's get busy now. You know, designate somebody on your, dedicate effort to getting prepared so that when this rolls around, we have a chance to compete for these dollars and bring them back to our county. We also are urging the county to collaborate. We think the part of the effort should obviously involve the park owners, the people that own the parks. We want to bring them in and talk with them and say, hey, they know they have problems. Now, they may not want to like our solutions maybe, but you know, we're common sense people. Can we sit down and figure out some way to do what we can do now to help make things better?
I got
That's,
to.
I'm done.
There we
go.
Let's,
I'm done.
conclusion. What your conclusion is then?
The conclusion is that we're eager to partner with the county. We're going to go ahead with our critical mobile home repair project. We will be having details that will be worked out with, we're working with Marshall Hospital's outreach workers. Sure. To identify low-income eligible thing and the Safe D program, some of you may know about. Our referrals will come through those outreach workers who already know the clients, know the situation, and will be bringing us repair projects.
All right.
That's it.
Okay, a few questions. Sue Taylor, you had asked me a question about affordable housing and some of the projects that are coming up over this year. Do they match? Okay, all right. Ruth Michelson.
Thank you. It's kind of I'll try to conglomerate, make it fast, but just wanted for everyone here to imagine being 65 years old, which most of us are in this room or greater, and having worked our whole lives in the service industry as whatever, truck drivers or waitresses or whatever, never having been homeless before, never having worked and lived in one of these mobile home parks and being faced with homelessness. It's really awful. And I also want to say that it's not that the rent started out at $500 or $600. Diamond Springs Manor, I have a friend who lives there, it's $400, and now it's close to $1,000. And if your social security is $1,100 and you're paying close to $1,000, you got nothing for food, gas, whatever. So really quickly, I think it's especially relevant to those in this room. There's always been a question about these homeless numbers. There's a disparity of what is reported, and I wanted to ask you, Frank, does homeless include living in your car? Does homeless include couch surfing? Does homeless include sharing housing with others? The last thing I want to mention is, you know, the county was late to get in on this whole homeless situation. They were late to get the navigation center. Once they realized homelessness could be monetized, there's lots of money out there for homelessness, they jumped on the bandwagon. And there's so much money going to white collar jobs, and it makes me frustrated that an organization like yours, Housing El Dorado, has to ask individuals for funds, or has in the past. I'm so glad you have grant monies now, because there's so much money going to the county. That's it.
Well, the money, yeah, so we are now, so our budget, we are now getting funds from the county to run some of our programs. So we operate a combination of donations and local private foundations and other foundation grants. And then also we have some county contracts with some of the money you're referring to. So the county we've made some significant progress in responding effectively to homelessness in our county over the last 3 years. Is there more work to do? Yes. Is it perfect? Absolutely not.
Now, her question specifically was people that are in their cars, people.
Yes,
that are.
okay, people in their cars count as homeless, and
Okay.
people that are it depends on couch surfing, yes, counts. If they're living in their cars or living in an encampment. If they're sharing housing, it depends on if they're sharing housing, that's not homeless. But if they're couch surfing, there we go, they are considered homeless.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll take one more question, Kevin.
Thank you, Frank. Just curious, what do you think about the notion of expanding the Title 24 tiny home ordinance to all the unincorporated areas of the county as a way? Maybe not necessarily for somebody who's 70 years old, but especially for the younger cohorts who are very willing to build their own tiny home, mill their own wood, but they're not allowed to do that under the code. Of course, building anything is extremely difficult.
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
no, I applaud the county for moving ahead with that project and allowing that.
Title 25.
Title 25, Title 25.
24?
thank you.
Yeah.
25.
Title 25 is energy.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's an exception.
Sorry,
Anyway.
I'm sorry. We don't have time. Somebody told me that people don't like to stay past the,
They want to hear the speaker and the questions. They don't want to listen to a further agenda.
These are quick questions.
we're gonna allow them to leave. if
This
they
is
want to.
just a quick question.
Go ahead.
I want to know the two projects that you have. Are those apartment buildings
Yes,
for low income housing? One in Placerville, and where's the other one located?
they're both in Placerville.
Both in Placerville. Thank you.
Gina.
Can you define the income requirements for low income? The three.
It was on the screen.
And
Yeah, so-
second, are you involved at all with the initiative of the state to bring housing on the land that our school districts own for workforce housing? Are you involved in that initiative at all?
I would love to know of a school district that's interested in doing that. I so far have not found any. So yes, there's opportunities for school districts and churches who have surplus land to build affordable housing, and there are special incentives to do that. And we would be eager, I would be eager to hear from a church or a school district that is interested in exploring that, because there's lots of opportunities.
The incentive that she's talking about, which I was gonna raise, is that you can house your educators on property owned by the school districts, which helps because their salaries aren't that high.
Exactly.
So if
I'm all
they're
for it.
right near where they're gonna work,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Absolutely. And we're working on a couple of projects like that with, but the problem is getting the land to transfer into the community land trust that we've set up. There's a whole way to do this. So, and we have affordable housing developers that we've worked with for a number of these different projects. They're eager to do more of them. The county needs to get accelerated. We need to have more land from churches and school districts. And that could be a key indicator. Federated Church, the El Dorado Haven project over on Pleasant Valley Road, is on what was Federated Church property, and they're finally gonna be building it hopefully next year. It's taken a long time to get it planned and delivered on, but Federated Church stepped up 7 years ago and did that. If there were other churches willing to do that, they know, it's easy to find me and easy to get in contact with Housing El Dorado.
We'll be in touch. We
What?
have some contacts that might be of interest.
The
to you.
people are gonna contact you
Yeah.
to talk about some of these
Excellent.
broader issues.
I'm all for it. Let me know.
Okay, one more question. Carol,
When you calculated income per household, was an individual or was that a couple?
It was a household income.
It was, okay, so that means an accumulation of whoever lives in the home.
family.
So that income would go up if you had a husband and wife both on social security and maybe a pension.
Right. Right.
Okay, so the stats would be a little higher than what you,
Well, that's what
Well,
they
they-
do.
what they-
That's what they-
that's what, with two incomes?
Yeah, the
And that was-
household.
And that was the lowest, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, the
And
numbers we
your
show up here
slides, can we
were
get copies of your
the
slides?
household income, that's what I showed you.
For those that didn't get copies because there wasn't enough, can they contact your office or
Sure.
to get a copy of what you did?
Well, I think I can leave,
I can, yeah.
I can send one to Kevin and he can send it out to all of you.
Also, Kevin's got the PDF.
I don't think the document's on there, but I'll send it.
Okay, just these slides.
Yeah, the slides are on there, but not this document.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll send it to Kevin and he'll send it out to all of you.
So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna have a short adjournment from our back. We stand adjourned on the public meeting portion, and the members meeting will start within a couple of minutes. This is time for anybody who's not a member to leave the room.
You guys interested in this? It's great.
Charlie, thank you.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
Yes.
Why did you know that the closed market is no force? I know I've been, studying all the dogs for many years.
Everything takes longer.
Oh,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, much better than the other one. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah.
And,
We'll be back.
later this year.
Okay.
Very relaxed. Come on. You know, relax.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job. Be in touch. There was a, I was done.
Just representing myself.
The key building block is the right land, not.
Right.
You'll be in the maybe 5 years. They vote themselves on all these committees and chairman of this and sub-chairman of that and. thrown their way out.
And they're not necessarily.
Gina,
Yeah.
we gotta get going here.
Thank you.
Ruth, you're gonna go out if you wanna talk short term. Yeah.
We get all those people here covered, guys. You know.
Almost forgot.
Right?
How many people do we have on Zoom?
We have quite a few. We've got Andy, Debbie, Idol, we've got Laurel, Lyle, Paul Freeman, Bob Williams, and Bill.
Okay, we'll leave them all on.
It's not clear what they're trying to convey when you've got.
Yeah, well, this goes back to your emotion.
Thank you.
I like that. Very good.
He's a thing.
Okay, we're gonna talk. Or we're gonna bring to order, call to order and establish a quorum on our members meeting. And approval of the agenda. The agenda's on. It's on email, so that's what I'm gonna be using to go forward here. Approval of the agenda. I'll need a motion to approve the agenda, or if people want to add things, they need to add them now. Carol? Anything to add
To the minutes?
to the agenda?
No.
Gina, anything to add that you're aware of? No? So I'll need a motion, Carol.
Approve the agenda,
Excuse me?
motion to approve the agenda.
Yeah, motion to approve the agenda. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin, what made the motion? Got a second over here, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Can I ask the second one?
Second was Jim Lemire.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Okay, so anyway, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Any abstentions? Agenda's approved. President's comments, I made them earlier. I don't have anything more to add. But I do want to get Frank back later this year to talk about the more general actions that the Housing El Dorado are taking in conjunction with the county. I think it's a topic that needs to be discussed in terms of what's going forward. We know that there's a large projects that are not low or very low income projects. And therefore, what does that mean to us in terms of meeting our arena goals? We can't. It doesn't work. Secretary's report, approval of the minutes,
I would like to amend the minutes.
okay?
Last paragraph, I referred to a presentation on Marble Valley and limestone housing projects. This was at the Ag Commission meeting. 3 of our members did attend.
Can you speak to who attended?
Gina was on Zoom, Sue Taylor was there, and I was there.
Okay.
Quick update on this.
As we get more flushed out and more effective. And I'm referring to your president. I'll have those minutes. Carol sent those to me a couple days ago. And I don't have them with me. But Carol, tell them what you record so that they know the process
Okay,
and what you don't record.
what it was recorded is the directors that were present, the directors that were absent. The meeting was, the time and place that the meeting was called to order, the speaker that was present, the treasurer's report, which was $8,969. We had a bylaws committee presentation. We approved the logo unanimously. The Board of Supervisors agenda was presented. It was on the ranch marketing. Then I did add that there was a presentation by the Ag Commission later that week on Marble Valley and Lime Rock housing projects. And the 3 taxpayers, although they did not identify themselves as taxpayers, we weren't there to
Okay.
make a statement in that regard. And then we were informed that there's no access to our Facebook account. Administrators Andy Nevis and Todd White have not given us the ability to get into our Facebook account.
Okay, that was the summarization of her minutes taken. Can I have a motion in a second on approval of the minutes? Okay,
I second it.
Jim Lemire and Stu was a second. Duly recorded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against? Any abstentions? Approved. Next is the treasurer's report. Since that report, the checks have been clearing. And if you remember, there were a few $100s in Chamber of Commerce membership dues. So now our balance is a little over 8,600. So it dropped about $200 or $300 as those checks cleared. So put down 8,600 in the minutes. Let's see, what else? Okay, bylaw committee report.
It's official. It's official. Our bylaws have been approved, signed, authorized, they are official. And all of you will be receiving copies shortly.
And
Thank you to everyone for all their hard work on the committee and within the organization itself.
And we put, since they're all hard copy or all liquid signature, what's the word?
Live.
Live, all 3 of them. Then up in the corner is 1 of, 2 of, 3 of. That's the only thing we've added. And then the initials on every page, and then the attest signature page by your president.
So it's a fully executed document.
Fully executed document with logo.
Thanks for the logo, too.
Thanks for the logo.
Okay. Anything more, Gina, on that?
No.
Okay, that concludes, the action of our bylaw committee. Do we believe that there'll be any more reports on the bylaw committee, coming up? I just want to know related to the agenda, whether additional reports. I'm gonna leave it on a few
So the
meetings.
bylaws are done. Now we're looking at the policies and procedures and Carol's driving that.
Okay.
We'll get something the next couple of weeks on that.
Okay, thank you. And that was your PMP committee report?
Correct.
Okay, communications committee report. The logo has been finalized. Thank you, Stu, and your artist. It looks beautiful. And it looks really good. Anything on the fire committee?
Fire committee's been fairly dormant over the last few months, but things are picking up.
We've
That
been
I think
having
we
fun.
need to get involved in. One is, a proposal by the insurance commissioner to use catastrophic modeling and rate making. So the concept is to use models to predict damage and losses, as opposed to the current insurance practice, we think, of using historical damages to set rates for the future. I think that we probably, the comment period is open until September 17th, which isn't that far away. So I will send this out to the fire committee people. Maybe we should send it out to everyone for comments. Some of my personal issues are, I think the reason we got in this situation to begin with is over-regulation of the industry. If they would have let the market determine the rates, then we'd probably not be where we are now. That's again a personal thought. The other thing is the modeling is, I'll say science, tongue in cheek. It's a whole bunch of guesses and estimates and probabilities that somebody inputs into this, if this, then that kind of model. And I was questioning those assumptions and inputs. Also, I'd like to have the model, if they go forward, validated by run the model as if there wasn't a fire in Paradise, and then compare it to what really happened. I think the insurance companies will tend to over project losses in a future model so that they can raise and sustain rates and profits. So those are just, again, personal thoughts, but we'll get it sent out to everybody. One of the other key things, and I think Gina pointed this out, is, or Carol, can't remember who, that the way the fair plan works right now is they have a pool of money. If the money's all gone, you're out of luck. The way they're gonna, quote, fix that is they're gonna have this pool of money. If the money's all gone, the taxpayers will put in half, and again, I'm just the first review, half of the shortfall, and then the homeowners will just eat the rest. So I think there's some really meaty things in here that need to be addressed, and I propose that we take a position. We can submit comments by email by September 17th. So hopefully we'll have a couple of meetings and be able to get that.
So one of the things about the committees that I think is important, as the committees start tying in to particular topics, statewide, local, a committee chair could come be a speaker on a meeting and take us through the entire discussion. Somewhat like Frank did here on affordable housing and mobile homes. If the chair came, took the analysis that they have created by their committee, and this is something that we're gonna have to consider as we go forward. Thank you for your report.
Oh, well, I'm not done.
Oh.
The second thing that the fire committee needs to kind of ramp up and be involved in is the countywide community wildfire protection plan, CWPP, which lays out where projects need to be ultimately and pursues grants for those projects, which probably interties with this predictive modeling for the insurance somehow. They're definitely not linked right now administratively, but they should be. So there's a meeting on Wednesday that they'll kick off this study for the new protection plan. And I plan to be there. I imagine Chris will be there, and I think we'll bring this up to the Whopper office.
Now, is this the morning meeting or the afternoon?
Afternoon.
Okay, this coming Wednesday, there'll be the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, who's now meeting at the American Legion Hall on Greenstone. They will start at 9:30, have their standard monthly meeting, and then in the afternoon, they take in a chunk of time and they'll have this meeting that Pat's talking about.
End of report.
Okay, Kevin.
Just to go back to communications, Andy, would like to address the Facebook page issue.
Okay.
And we've got, there you go, Andy, you got the floor.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is it's part of unfinished business. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, so thank you, Chris and Kevin. I wasn't going to speak today, but my name was invoked, and so I just wanted to say I've been in contact with Chris and Lee and Kevin trying to figure out a resolution. The problem is I am not an administrator anymore. I gave up my access when I resigned. So I went into Facebook and said, hey, I'm not an administrator anymore because I'm not an officer. So I have no ability to give the association its account access back. I can't speak for any others, but I am, willing to do whatever I can, including, I have reached out to Facebook and tried to see if there's any way to get that access back. So then I could add, the officers back in. So far that has not been successful, but I just wanted to, reassure everyone, I obviously a lot of what's on that Facebook page contains the, time period when I was an officer. And so I'm definitely interested in helping to get it back. So I just wanted to state that for the record. I'm happy to do whatever I can. Although again, because I, resigned and gave up my access, I'm not currently an officer. So I'm somewhat limited, but I am doing, what I can there. And I'm hoping it gets resolved.
Okay, Andy. Carol.
I want to make note that when we continue with the policies and procedures, that we put that in, that any officer who resigns while they're in the process, they need to pass over all of the material that they have accumulated in their tenure, including passwords and any other material that's pertinent to the organization.
Now, haven't you received thumbs from Andy already?
No, nothing.
Andy, I thought Carol and I received a package from you.
Yeah, I'll forward it again if you need it, but I know I did send a lot. Okay.
I'll make sure if you send it to her Greenstone.
That may have been the problem, actually. I may have had the
make sure it goes to the
yeah.
Greenstone email.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll resend it to that one.
Right, thank
Sorry
you.
about that. Yeah.
Okay, Carol, record that under unfinished business, that note.
Okay.
Okay,
Question.
Ruth, go ahead.
When people do committee reports, is it appropriate to make comments or not?
You're a member.
I know, but sometimes procedurally. it's
Well,
a report.
I realize that if it's quick and we can move.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
okay.
So for the fire people, when you're talking about models, et cetera, trying to implement that. I'm just wondering if another thing you might, as a committee, look at is knowing that insurance is a business. We all understand businesses, those of us who run businesses. And we know that California is burning up. And it's a tough business to run. But just like how PG&E went bankrupt, but they gave their CEOs big bonuses as they went bankrupt. I'm just wondering if it might be prudent to look at the insurance industry and to see internally. I mean, they're saying they can't afford to operate here. We have to go to the FAIR plan. But how are they running their business and what are their higher ups getting as far as bonuses? To me, that might be more prudent than asking them to do another model, because I think as we all know, different models will show different results. That's it.
Thank you for your comment. Okay.
Comment.
Oh, Bruce, go ahead.
Since we're bringing up these other past items, I thought this would be the best place to do it rather than wait for unfinished business.
Okay,
I'd like the board to consider that in the bylaws, we have the bylaws, but the bylaw committee bring up a summary of the actions, what they did, and potential recommendations in future dates to consider in regards to what the bylaws are, how they might be changed or altered. forward looking into that situation.
If that's the case, then the purpose of having the bylaw committee still in existence allows the mechanism to do what you just said. So that's one of the reasons why we may want to keep these committees as standing committees and not dissolve them. Because your idea is that we could be working towards the next iteration in making adjustments when we find things don't work or that there's something better that we could do. Go
Well,
ahead.
I wouldn't say that the bylaw committee needs to be a standing committee, it needs to be continued. Because they've already done their work. Now, if there's a small statement at the end of that saying that in the future, we would look at these things, then a new bylaw committee could be.
And so policies and procedures is where something like that would go. Because there, now we have it and we're working on it and we're gonna see a version of it, which you're gonna see. And that little statement, if you have something in your mind, send it to Gina. Because I believe getting it correct, hopefully, so that you would say, I like this, would be our goal to do that. So will you help in any way you can? Yes.
I would say that that's not the best way to do it. And that, because the
Okay.
committee's done their work and let them be done.
All right.
Now they can do other things, right?
Yeah.
That are tied to that.
Thanks, Bruce.
With the summary,
Carol?
summary.
Yeah.
That's the key to the summary, is
Okay.
looking at future, whenever that is necessary.
All right, thank you, Bruce.
Just quickly,
Yeah,
if any member, after reviewing the bylaws, which you will be getting a copy for, if you see something that it should be pertinent and brought to our attention, please put it in writing and get it to us. We may not do it immediately, but as this process goes forward, we
Yeah.
have a 2-year window period, and
okay,
then we can revisit.
okay. Let's see, our committee, transportation committee report, last, week, we talked about having a community projects committee, which would include transportation. So instead of just transportation, it would include things like water and other elements of what we would call community projects. These are projects that are being proposed. And I just wanted to remind everybody, under the transportation committee report, that from this point forward, we'll be changing the title to Community Projects Committee. Okay? All right, let's see, new business. Hold on a second, I just want to make sure I got everything. Okay, no new business. The final item is the Board of Supervisors meeting. You had Frank speak about what was going on last meeting. I wanted to say, for the record and being transparent, that Chris Payne of Diamond Springs spoke on item consent calendar 4, 5, and 20, item 27, 28, and 29. Essentially, if you look at the Board of Supervisors agenda, I didn't speak as the taxpayers president. I spoke as Chris Payne, Diamond Springs. If I talk about railroads, I speak in terms of the railroad. That's the clarity. If you hear me speak at the board, and I haven't said that it's speaking for the taxpayers, then I'm not speaking for the taxpayers. I'm speaking for myself personally. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay,
I have a question.
what's that?
So, do you identify yourself then as speaking for the Taxpayers Association
When-
when you do that?
Yes, when I do it, yes.
And is that something that the taxpayers boards has accepted as a topic of speech?
Yes, even if we talk about it, that there's no action taken, that I don't really have the right, based on our bylaws, to speak about that in behalf of the taxpayers.
Going forward, the concept is, since every week the board agenda is very important to our organization, that we think about how we can best address what we want the taxpayers to be represented relative to those Tuesday meetings. And so under the communication umbrella, we should think about having a segment under there where certain folks in this room look at the agenda and come to our meetings on Tuesday, specifically saying, I think we should speak on these items. They then would get approved on Tuesday, and then we'd go forward with that representation. So we're gonna tighten that up. It's gonna take a little while to do that, and think about whether that's something of interest. If you do read the board meeting, if you do read the board agenda every week, you'd probably be a really good candidate to figure out which ones would make sense to talk about on Tuesday segment.
So based on two items then under Board of Supervisors agenda, one being last meeting and the other one being tomorrow, there's a shortened Board of Supervisors agenda, essentially, really short. There's 11 consent calendar items. Typically, there'll be 30 or more.
One is for $3.5 million.
Okay, I didn't say that they weren't expensive, but there's only 11 items. If you wanted to look at a Board of Supervisors agenda, it would be this one, because there's only 11 items on consent. Ruth?
Does this group ever talk about the abuse of the consent calendar?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we have talked about the abuse, yeah.
And especially on an agenda like
Yeah,
this on
Carol.
Tuesday, there is no excuse. They often will use the excuse, they don't have time to talk about everything. There is no, I have to tell you, Sue, I haven't looked at it. There's a 3.5 million on the consent.
Yeah.
That's atrocious.
Yeah.
That's atrocious.
Okay, and you've spoken and Sue has spoken. How can we do when we only have 3 minutes? 3 minutes to discuss every consent calendar item, not per item, 3 minutes for all the items. Meaning,
Statement, you can comment at the consent calendar time.
Yes.
Can we do that? Now, what we spend our 3 minutes saying is, you are abusing.
okay,
You are abusing the consent calendar. This is, if you guys read up on board policy, general, board policy on the use of consent is for standard
Good.
items that do not require discussion.
okay.
We could ask for it to be removed and put it into the afternoon.
We can
Well,
ask-
you-
So
you
again,
have-
I think this is the discussion, those of you that are interested.
Yeah.
Consider, by the way, you can be on committees, you can lead committees if you are a member. You do not have to be a board, you do not have to be an officer. So
Okay.
those of you, some of you here have interest in
And this has been addressed last year.
For 50 years.
Let me finish those
I
stuff.
need a letter from the tax.
Look at,
But, and you make it official and you keep.
Okay.
reminding.
I want to finish
I
presenting
agree,
this
Sue.
item.
Yeah.
So I told you about consent.
You've already said it.
There are 2 items on department matters. One of them has to do with the county's development review process. And trying to get feedback and direction. That's item 12, department matters. Item 13 is the memorandum of understanding, memorandum of agreement between El Dorado County and Tiffany Schmidt, the CAO, Chief Administrative Officer. This is her contract, item 13. And then at 9 o'clock time specific, there's a discussion on Title III, Revenue and Finance with the Treasurer Tax Collector. It is a hearing, a 9 o'clock hearing, item 14. No afternoon items other than open forum. And then there's 2 addendums for general government, both were placed on consent. One of them was emergency use of facilities with for CAL FIRE that had to do with the Crozier fire. That's when they closed the airport. And also over here, the parking lot across the freeway has been taken over by CAL FIRE for the maintenance of their vehicles. So that item 19 is consent calendar related to the airports. Item 20 is a budget transfer. It's $8,837 increasing fixed assets. And that's through Health and Human Services Agency, item 20. That's it for tomorrow. Anything more?
I would like to add one thing.
Yeah.
The board supervisor's agenda states that organizations that are qualified at 5 minutes, I think we ought to write a letter to the board of supervisors to state that we would like that restated. And that a organization must prove that is qualified as an organization to, through their filings with the Secretary of State, that they have that kind of standing.
Okay, you prepare something?
Yeah, I'll add it to my list.
Okay, add it to your list.
I think you have better luck January first than you would right now.
That's
Okay.
totally true. You're
I
right.
don't think so.
We stand adjourned. Thank you for staying over.
Yes.